So Windows here's a story. Microsoft recommends 32 gigs of RAM for a no compromised. It says game. I just said gaming experience, but let's be honest, for a no compromised user experience, right? Getting back to this, so Microsoft is saying now that 32 gigs is essentially the baseline for a no worries user experience. Um, Microsoft is saying that with multiple applications, browsers, communication tools running at the same time, games, um, it's a lot of RAM, right? So they recommend 32. I don't know. I don't know at what point in the future they're going to recommend 64. I think it's going to be a while. 64 is over. I even thought of getting a 64, and I remember that dilemma. I was like, should I go with 64? And then when I did my research online, 95% of people were like 32 is enough, so that's why I did go with 32. Now this was before Ramageddon, before the prices shot up, and it's easy for Microsoft to recommend 32 gigs. It's easy for me to recommend 32 gigs, but if you're out shopping around, it's not so easy. Now, I watched a what was it on MSNBC, or was it some one of the money channels? Was it damn, I can't remember. I saw an interview with Micron. Their CEO. Micron is a big memory manufacturer. I'm sure at some point you've used some device with a Micron chip in there, memory chip. He was saying we're not even at the point of where the supply meets the demand for memory, because long story short, and we're going to get to Apple and what they are doing. Wait till you hear what Apple's doing. But the CEO of Micron was saying that these AI data centers are consuming, they're buying up as much RAM, as much memory as possible for their data centers. That's why it's they store data, right? And AI uses the data from these data centers for their LLMs. Well, that's taking memory away from computers. That's taking memory supply away from phones. And you can see where that kind of causes a problem, supply and demand. He was saying we're not even close to the point of where supply meets demand. He was saying at the very earliest, you're looking at 2028, possibly 2029, where the supply will meet the demand. The demand for this memory is so high. Everybody needs memory. Apple, Samsung, well, they kind of make their own, but you get it. These data centers, X, Twitter, they have huge data centers. They need memory. And these manufacturers that manufacture this memory, TSMC, they're at their limit when it comes to manufacturing. They can't build fabs fast enough. Samsung's popping up another one just about 45 minutes away from me in Austin. It's amazing. Now, these new fabs are trying to be built as fast as possible, but it takes time to not only get them built, but to start producing products, start producing chips. It's a big issue. Now, how does that apply to us? Well, that means this whole memory thing is the rise in the cost is going to be around for a couple of years, maybe a few years. So very interesting interview. I got a lot of good, useful information out of it. And it just reminds me to remind you, if you're interested, and I think I said this about 6 to 8 months ago, if you're interested in getting a new storage device or possibly a new laptop, the price increases have begun. So I think the sooner you buy something, the better, meaning prices could even go higher here, I don't know, in the next 6 months, 8 months, year. So I fortunately got lucky even before this whole Ramageddon thing happened. I purchased sticks of RAM. I purchased, actually running it right now, another Gen 5, 1 terabyte PCIe. So I got lucky. I didn't know this was going to happen. I just purchased it before the increase happened. But keep that in mind. The prices are going up and it sucks. But it looks like it's going to be a while before they come down. So possibly 2030, another 4 years before this happens. But the shortage in memory, and this is why their stock is blowing up. Not the only reason, because Panther Lake and 18A node and 14A node has something to do with it. But this also has something to do with it. So the shortage in RAM is making these companies like Intel look for other options, right? It's like they can't make RAM and memory fast enough, so why don't we make a new version of memory that we can mass produce? And what do you know? Intel went to the lab and they came up with something that is simply amazing. So if you dive into this, it's really, really spectacular with what they came up with. This is a new Z-angle memory. Now, obviously, RAM is random access memory, but this is Intel's brand new Z-angle memory. It's an emerging memory standard developed in collaboration with SoftBank. If you remember Sprint here in the United States, SoftBank purchased Sprint. They're in the tech world. They investment firm, investment banking. They saw Intel's foresight and thought, we want to invest. And boy, I think that was a good decision. So this aims to challenge high bandwidth memory, HBM, in the high performance AI and GPU sectors. This is going to help ease the supply. And you might start seeing this in future products. So ZRAM is designed to offer significant advantages over current high bandwidth memory. It has it has a potential to double the bandwidth of current high bandwidth memory 4. It also has the ability to store a greater memory capacity in the same space, kind of like silicon carbon batteries can hold more ions of energy inside that same size of battery, right? So it's kind of the same thing. It also has improved thermal management, meaning it doesn't get as hot. It doesn't heat up as much. Now, this new memory standard features a 9-layer stacked design with thin silicon substrates and advanced interconnects, promising a capacity of 10 gigabytes per stack and a remarkable bandwidth of over 5 terabytes per stack. 5 terabytes per second per stack. And it's interesting, they call it ZRAM, Z-angle memory, because the way they stack it looks like a Z. Again, I'm not going to bore you to death, but just an example. Wanted to bring this forward to let you know what Intel is doing. This is one of the reasons why their stock is blowing up. I've been watching them for the last year very, very closely, and what they're doing is absolutely amazing. Their turnaround is historic for the company. They've never had they've never had a month like last month. So let's go to Apple, because this directly affects phones. And remember, we were talking about the Oppo Find X9 Ultra, the Oppo Find X9 Pro. Well, it looks like Oppo Find X9, it looks like Oppo Find X10, the 10 Pro, is right around the corner. But there might not be another one after that. There might not be an X11, an X12, an X13 from Oppo because of Apple. Or a Xiaomi 17, or excuse me, a Xiaomi 18 Pro or 18 Pro Max. So check this out. I think I mentioned this last week, but didn't go into detail. So Apple is RAM hoarding. They're buying up as much memory as possible now for 2 reasons. One reason is for their own devices, right? They sell hundreds of millions of devices, phones, iPads, even MacBooks a year. If you combine all their products that use memory into one sales total for the year of, I don't know, 2025, it's in the hundreds of millions, right? So they, out of a, a few major companies, probably one of the highest purchasing RAM consumers, company wise, out there. So again, they're buying up as much memory as they can find for two reasons. For one reason, for themselves, I would just mention the high volume of sales that they have. For the second reason is to put their to put their competition out of business. Wow. Yeah, they're doing that. So Apple is reportedly buying up as much LPDDR5 memory as they can find, creating a shortage on purpose that impacts competition and allows Apple to maintain its iPhone prices without raising the price. This aggressive procurement strategy, coupled with Apple's efforts to freeze product prices, is forcing Chinese original equipment manufacturers to reconsider or just say stop on their ultra premium flagship smartphones due to escalating bill of materials. So if Apple, now remember, I mentioned this last week, Apple negotiates their prices in memory like the airlines do for their fuel. Remember, the airlines will buy, they know exactly how much fuel they use. And even if they can negotiate the next 6 months or a year of fuel with these fuel manufacturers and save 10 cents a gallon or 13 cents a liter or whatever they do it by, you're saving hundreds of millions of dollars purchasing at a fixed price. Well, Apple's doing that same thing, but with memory. They might be a little expensive now. Apple might be buying memory at a little over market price right now. Yeah, but in 8 months, the price could freaking double again. And Apple looks really smart 8 months down the road because they're just paying a few percentage over what they're paying now instead of paying double 8 months from now. See what I'm saying? So while everybody else is paying double. So it's a very rare position to be in because not many companies can do this. I mean, you have to, all that money that you negotiate these prices, these deals up front, you got to pay these the memory manufacturers up front, meaning you got to have a ton of liquid cash on hand to pay up front, right? Well, it's all negotiated, right? It could be a half now, half in 6 months, but you get the idea. It costs a lot of money. In a smaller company, and I say small, like Oppo or smaller than Apple, Xiaomi, they really don't have the purchasing power, right? It's kind of like Walmart. Their prices are kind of cheaper than everybody else because they buy in volume. Same kind of idea. Well, if Oppo is paying $100 for their memory in these phones now, well, what if they have to pay $200? What if they have to pay $300? Right? So reports suggest Apple is signing long-term agreements with memory vendors, further solidifying its control over the memory market, while Samsung is also noted to be participating in this market sweep as well. The situation leaves the high-end smartphone market increasingly open for Apple and, to some extent, Samsung, as Chinese manufacturers struggle to compete with Apple's pricing and supply chain advantages. Check this out. I heard the increase in RAM is causing, now they didn't say which phone company or which Ultra. You kind of read through the lines. I think what they were talking about is the reason why this is such a big deal and why it's a very strong possibility that there might not be an Oppo Find X10 Ultra, right? The X10 Pro, their OnePlus 15 lookalike, that next generation is right around the corner. So Oppo's already got the memory for that. Remember, these phones take 3 to 4 years to, plan out and actually come to fruition. The X10 Pro is going to come out, but I'm not so sure about the X10 Ultra this time next year, or the X11 Ultra a year after that, because it's going to be too expensive. So it's so high just right now. that the bill of materials to put together, let's just say an Oppo Find X9 Ultra, is $901. So what does that mean? That means it costs Oppo or BBK, Oppo, it costs them $901 to build one Oppo Find X9 Ultra. That's expensive. They're charging, what is the base price? $1,500. So it's essentially costing them $900 to build, which is, I think, a couple $100 over what it was just a year or two ago. That's eating into their profit. So if they sell a phone for $1,500, it costs them $900 to make, right? They're only profiting what, $600, when in the past it would cost them essentially like how Apple does it. Well, it depends on what phone you're making. It depends on a lot of things, but typically the number you want to hit is you want to charge double, 2 times what it costs for you to make it, right? So in that case, if you're Oppo, if you're charging $1,500 for the Oppo Find X9 Ultra, typically in the past, with past numbers before this RAM thing got and memory thing got out of hand, it would cost them roughly $750 to produce one phone, and then they would profit $750. Again, I'm making it sound easy. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this, but roughly, we're just speaking loosely here. But if you take $150 out of that profit, out of that $750 profit, that's not good. And it's going to get worse, right? Remember, it's not going to level off until another couple of years. So what if making these phones, what if it's $900 this year? What if it's $1,000 next year? What if it's $1,100 for them to make each phone? It's just at some point it's not feasibly possible. It literally does not make sense to manufacture a phone if you're not going to make a profit on it. So that's why you start hearing these rumors that they might take a break from the ultra flagship segment and just come back to it, reproduce it again when the prices come back down. And that's right around, look, nobody knows, but the Micron CEO I was watching the interview of, he said after 2030 the prices should come, well, hopefully they come down. Who's to say they don't ever come down? That's a possibility as well. I hope they come down, but these memory manufacturers are making so much money right now. They may all have some little secret meeting and say, let's not lower the prices. Let's just keep them here. I guess it's possible. I hope that doesn't happen. But in the end, we are the people that get screwed. But look, we might not have many options later. And I say later meaning, and I say options meaning, if Oppo doesn't produce flagship phones for the next few years, Xiaomi doesn't mass produce flagship phones for the next few years, that essentially leaves us with Apple, Google, and Samsung. I mean, it sucks, but I don't know. Man, bad times right now. First world problems. I get it, but not good for the end consumer.